Welcome to the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am your host, Michelle Berman-Michael, and my mission with this podcast is simple: to help realtors and loan officers across the world tap into the value Instagram can have for them and their business. To me, organic business that comes to us is the name of the game. On this show, you're going to hear from myself, other experts across social media, and also others that are just like you, selling real estate and doing loans and doing it at a high level on social media. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. Guys, I am really freaking pumped about this because this is a very unique and very special episode to me. I am actually interviewing, quote unquote, my VP of all things here at Berman Media PD, Tiffanie Janowitz. I'm so excited to have her. Tiff and I just feel like it's very timely for us to do an episode where we really just pour into our people and the audience that we have. Tiff has a very unique role with us here, and she sees a lot of things on the back end that I think she can really speak a ton of light into. You have seen a lot on your side of what we do with people that have had really unique questions about what to do right now with the world of Instagram. What we're going to do for this episode is we're going to actually go through, and Tiffanie and I made a list of some of the really common questions that we feel like we just get all the time. It's kind of this array of questions that I think if we just kind of rapid fire through how we would answer them, I think it would be of huge value for everybody. And the first one is something that I hear personally on sales calls almost every single day. Every single sales call I have, these people say this, and it's not a bad thing, but the question is, why do I need to use Instagram if I'm a referral-based agent?
Your grassroots marketing is phasing out. And the biggest reason why is the ability of your reach. Right. And you and I have talked about this before. Like, if we needed to reach all the people that were close in contact with us, how long would that take us to call those people, to physically go to their house, to really connect with them? And then when you take that step over and you look at the amount of people that you can reach through your Instagram base, I mean, that's untapped potential. The outlay there is huge. Referrals are always going to come, and the referral is going to come from a good experience. It's going to naturally come from your connections, but the amount of referrals that we can generate through Instagram and the connective piece, I mean, that's just tenfold.
Yeah, I'm going to 100% piggyback off this because I was actually on someone else's podcast recently and said this exact thing that you were kind of referencing, which is that if I had to go meet 100 people, right? You make a list of 100 people that us as a team should be going and shaking hands with, if you will. If I was on a plane to go see all 100 of those people and I saw one person per week, that would take me 100 weeks. But what I can do on Instagram is I can talk to all 100 of those in the same single week, thanks to my feed, reels, stories, highlights, all the things that we're going to talk about. So being a referral-based agent, I think, is something that's so incredible to be able to say. But the reality is being a referral-based agent doesn't give us the excuse of not having marketing or not having a presence.
So I think that that's a good leeway of, like, when we're talking about our social presence, a very common question that you and I also get asked all the time is, why Instagram? Why Instagram over all of these other social media platforms that are out there? There's TikTok, there's YouTube, the list goes on. So why Instagram?
Yeah, this has got to be one of my favorite questions because I have been saying Instagram since 2014. And a lot of people thought I was batshit, you know what? And to this very day, I absolutely swear by it, and I stand behind it 100,000%. And here's the reason. I truly believe, and mark my words, that Instagram will transcend any trend, and it will definitely transcend time. And if you create content that matters and you do things the way that we teach them, your content will outlast any up and down that goes on in the market or any recession that we may or may not get or go through. Which there will be more, like, let's be honest, right? There's going to be more recessions over there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So why Instagram? Here's the reason for me. Instagram is 6 platforms in one, theoretically. So we can talk about this. We'll break it all down. So your stories, right, on Instagram are Snapchat. It is what Snapchat used to be, where it was this instant thing and then it would go away. Now on stories on Instagram, we all know that they last for 24 hours and then they disappear. So it has the same vibe as Snapchat, but the key is that it allows people to get into the behind the scenes of who we are, what we like to do during our normal day to day. And it really creates that like, I like you and I feel like I know you kind of feeling, and allows people to hear your voice, see your mannerisms, just get to know your personality. And it's really special. It's a very off the cuff space. So
it creates that relatable piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So stories is Snapchat, right? So there's number one. Number two is your highlights, right? So your highlights on Instagram is your website. Gone are the days of having to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on building these super fancy schmancy websites, because guess what? People don't go to them. Your highlights, think of them as like the tabs on your website, right? So that's what you and I teach our people. And we say, this is your barrier of entry. This is where people are going to go down the rabbit hole of who are you. And if you create highlights that allow people to feel connected to you on the personal side, along with the business side, it creates that lifelong content that's going to stay there forever. Part number three, we obviously have Reels. These are the new things. So that is the equivalent of TikTok. There's nothing more to say about that. Number four is what we call kind of like the guides aspect of Instagram. And we don't use them a ton, but they certainly exist. And they're certainly a big part of what people are doing now. But I would say guides is LinkedIn, right? So this is your more blog style content. This is more your long form kind of article based content. So there's your LinkedIn version on Instagram. Your feed as a whole is what I would say is the equivalent of Facebook, right? But the difference is that it is the personal visual aspect combined with the connective piece of your caption. Whereas Facebook, I feel like a lot of times it's a lot harder to get to that true personal side of somebody. Instagram is everything that you need on all of the different platforms in one space.
Totally. And I think what you said at the very beginning of that is something that I think needs to just be pointed out again, is it truly transcends time. I mean, I got my first Instagram account in 2012. I mean, we're talking 10 years, a decade. And then I want you guys to think about the platforms that we just laid out there that have come in and out in that decade. That Instagram has held steady. So much can change in a decade. So much is going to change in the next decade. And I don't believe that Instagram is going anywhere.
I think that it's one of those platforms that will always be in line with what's coming. I think Instagram and the creators of Instagram and the people that are really behind it have done an incredible job at staying really relevant, but not being trendy all the time, right? So we're not worried so much about being viral 24/7. We're worried about creating great content that really matters. And of course,
with purpose.
There's nothing wrong with going viral. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just one of those things that's not Instagram, and the founders of Instagram and the people who have really created the platform, I feel like have done a really good job at putting an emphasis on what matters more than the vanity metric side of things. So I do want to transition just a little bit because I want to keep the questions running here. The one that I really want to talk into, and you hear this so much on the VIP program side, is that when people are transitioning into that program with us, they say, you know, I've been posting on Instagram all the time and I feel like I've been really consistent and I'm just not getting anything out of it. And I really don't know why.
Yeah. Question I'm asked on the daily. Again, these are so relevant, you guys. And that's obviously why we're bringing them to the table. But the biggest piece that I immediately turn around and ask my clients when they say that is, what are you doing to engage with your audience? What are you doing to go out and engage every single day with the target audience, with the people that are already in front of you? Paint that picture of what that looks like to me. And half the time I get nothing, or like, well, I like back or I comment back on people that are commenting on mine. So what are you doing to get the exposure out there of the content that you're producing? You can produce amazing content all day long, but if you're not getting the reach that you're capable of, then you're wasting a lot of content and you're wasting a lot of time because nobody is seeing it. So I think that the engagement piece of things, I mean, that is just as important, if not more important than the content that you're producing. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 1,000%. I was just going to say that exact thing, that the content you produce there is very important. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not something that we spend a ton of time on with our clients and that we really focus on creating super high value content. But more importantly than that is the engagement side, right? So I always say the same thing. I'm like, okay, so if you haven't generated any business off of Instagram, let's ask 2 questions. Number 1, are you doing 45 comments and 20 story replies every single day? But a lot of times what they say is, I do nothing. I do none of that. Or they'll just give me this blank stare of like, what? I didn't know I was supposed to.
Yeah. You say the word 45 and you just got deer in the headlights. Like, excuse me.
Yeah. And then they say, well, I've hired a social media company. They do some engagement for me, but I'm not really sure what engagement they're doing. Or, what the value of it is. And so that leads me to point number 2, which is, what do your analytics look like? Are you tracking your metrics? Do you see them? Are you spending time creating creating conversation around your content? And if you're not tracking your metrics, which a lot of people think is irrelevant on Instagram, which I completely disagree with. But if you're not tracking your metrics and you're not actively focused on creating 45 comments, 20 story replies, creating that daily touch points with all of the people that might be relevant to you to actually generate business from, the company you've hired to help you do it, first off, is doing you a disservice. Secondly, they are completely missing the entire point of the platform. If you enjoyed this episode, please go follow my guests on social media. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us a review wherever you consume this content.